3 months ago, my daughter helped a cult steal my life. Not a portion of it, not just my savings account, but the entire sum total of the security my late husband, Frank, and I built over 45 years. It was everything. $472,000. All of it was sent to a company with a name so bland it had to be a lie. They told me I was liberating Frank's energy. What a poetic way to describe grand larceny. Now, I sit in a house that echoes with emptiness. My husband's favorite armchair sold, our wedding china packed in boxes, all on their instructions. They said attachments to the material world were a prison for the soul. They convinced my own daughter to hand them the keys. Before we continue, subscribe to the channel and click the bell icon, as we have new stories every day. Like and let us know in the comments which city you're watching from. My daughter, Chloe, was my lifeline. She is my only child, 38, and has always been what my mother would have called a deep feeler. Every heartache, every disappointment, she felt it right down to her bones. After Frank's funeral, she moved into our spare room for a month, making sure I ate, dragging me out for walks, even when the gray Pacific Northwest sky matched my mood perfectly. But she had her own storms to weather. A brutal breakup was followed by a corporate restructuring that eliminated her marketing job. She was adrift, and her calls, which had been my comfort, became laced with her own quiet desperation. I tried to help her, offered to have her move back home, but she insisted she needed to find her own way. And then, about 8 months ago, she did. Or so I thought. The change in her was gradual, then sudden. Her voice on the phone, usually fraught with worry, took on a smooth, serene quality. It was like listening to a stranger. She told me she'd been attending workshops with a group called the Community of Dawning Light. It was a spiritual wellness community with a retreat center nestled deep in the Cascade Mountains, a place for people who felt lost to recenter their intentions. Mom, you can't imagine the energy up there. It's like the trees themselves are breathing peace. The guide, Brother Silas, he has this way of seeing right into your soul. He says our pain is just unshed skin, and he's teaching us how to molt. Molting. It sounded like something a snake would do, but I was so desperate to hear joy in her voice that I didn't question this strange new vocabulary. I just said, "That's wonderful, honey." Frank always said I was too trusting, but how can you not trust your own child's happiness? The full court press started a month later. Chloe called, her voice bright and full of purpose. "We're having a family and friends weekend at the lodge, Mom. I've reserved a spot for you. You have to come. You have to see it for yourself. I want you to meet my new family." My family? The words were a soft blow. Was I not her family anymore? The guilt was a masterfully played instrument in their hands. Refusing to go would mean I was rejecting her new life. So I packed an overnight bag, my stomach in knots, and drove the 2 hours into the mountains, up a winding road that got narrower and more remote with every mile. The lodge was magnificent, a grand cathedral of cedar and glass that seemed to have sprung organically from the forest floor. And the people, they descended on my car the moment I parked. Smiles, so many bright, unwavering smiles. They knew my name. "You must be Tula. Chloe is a beacon of light in our community." A woman with braided silver hair hugged me, pressing a mug of herbal tea into my hands. A man took my bag before I could object. They surrounded me, touching my arm, telling me I had a luminous aura. It was overwhelming, a tidal wave of manufactured warmth. Later, I'd learned the term for it is love bombing. At the time, I just felt disoriented and deeply conspicuous. The centerpiece of the weekend was a seminar with Brother Silas himself. He wasn't what I expected. No flowing robes or wild eyes. He was in his mid-50s, dressed in a simple, cream-colored linen shirt and trousers, with a neatly trimmed beard and crinkles of kindness around his eyes. He looked like a retired college professor. His voice was calm, resonant, and utterly compelling. He didn't preach, he told stories. He spoke about the economy of the spirit, a concept where money was just congealed energy. He said that holding on to wealth, especially inherited wealth, was like hoarding love. It stagnates, it sours. The only way to make it pure again, he claimed, was to release it into a current of higher purpose. He never explicitly said, "Give your money to me." He was much, much smarter than that. He just planted the seed, leaving it to his followers' desperation and devotion to make it grow. The most manipulative part was the private family integration session he held with Chloe and me. We sat in a small, sun-drenched room on comfortable cushions. He looked at me, his gaze so direct and empathetic, it felt like he could see every lonely night I'd spent since Frank died. "Tula," he said, his voice as soft as felt, "I can see the magnificent legacy of love your husband Frank left for you. A true provider, a protector. His love is a powerful force." He paused, letting the words sink in. "But that force is currently sitting dormant in a bank, in stocks and bonds, digital numbers on a screen. It's trapped. Chloe is building a new life here, a life of service and light. Just imagine Frank's love being the very foundation of that new life, the cornerstone of a new healing center, a place for hundreds of other souls, just as lost as Chloe was, can find their way home. You wouldn't just be supporting your daughter, you'd be immortalizing your husband's love." It was a perfect, diabolical pitch. It bypassed logic and went straight for the heart, from my grief, from my fierce love for my daughter and my husband. I felt a confusing mix of revulsion and a strange pull. The idea of Frank's legacy living on, it was tempting. But Frank was a nuts and bolts man. He believed in compound interest and rainy day funds, not currents of higher purpose. I politely demurred. "My finances are all taken care of, but thank you," I said, my voice tighter than I wanted. Chloe's face crumpled. She looked at me as if I'd just slapped her. On the long, silent drive back to her apartment in Seattle, the air was thick with her disappointment. As soon as I parked the car, she broke. The tears weren't fake. I know my daughter's tears. That's what made it so much worse. "Mom, I don't understand," she wept, her shoulders shaking. "This is the first thing that's made me feel whole since Dad died. This community, these people, they saved me. I thought you'd be happy for me. Why are you holding on so tight to that money? Is it more important than my happiness? Is it more important than me?" The hook was set. From that day on, my every hesitation was framed as a betrayal. I was the selfish mother, clinging to her material wealth, while her daughter was trying to build a life of spiritual abundance. It was emotional blackmail of the highest order. The calls continued for weeks. They were a carefully orchestrated campaign. Chloe would call me, talking about all the wonderful projects they had planned. She'd say, "We just found the most perfect parcel of land adjacent to the lodge. It's got a natural spring. Brother Silas had a vision of building the new Serenity Wing for our elder members there, a place they can live out their days in peace and community. A place for people like you, Mom." A place for me, the carrot and the stick. Come with us, be part of this beautiful future, or be the one who prevents it from happening.
One evening, she put another woman on the phone, a sweet-sounding older lady named Eleanor. Eleanor told me her children had liberated her assets by pooling their resources to buy her a permanent place in the community. It was the greatest gift they could ever have given me. I'm finally free from the burden of property taxes and leaky roofs. Every call was a new turn of the screw. The breaking point arrived on Tuesday, October 17th. The phone rang at 7 a.m. It was Chloe, and she was hysterical. "Mom, it's a catastrophe," she wailed, her words tripping over sobs. "The land deal, the owner, he got another offer, a cash offer from a horrible developer who wants to build luxury condos. Brother Silas talked to him, but he's greedy. He gave us until this Friday to put down a non-refundable deposit, a good faith payment to show we're serious." I felt my blood turn to ice. "Chloe, slow down. A non-refundable deposit? How much are they asking for?"
$200,000, she choked out. "We've all pooled everything we have left. My savings are gone. It's not enough. We're going to lose everything, Mom. This whole place, this dream, it's going to fall apart because of greed." She took a shuddering breath. "You're the only one who can help us. Please, Mom, think of what Dad would have done. He never let us down." There it was again, Frank. Using my dead husband, the kindest, most honorable man I had ever known, as a weapon against me. The image of Chloe's world crumbling, of her sinking back into that terrible depression, I couldn't stand it. This wasn't just an investment anymore. In my manipulated mind, it was a rescue mission. I was saving my daughter. But it got worse. The next day, Chloe called again. She sounded calmer, filled with a new, solemn purpose. "Mom, Brother Silas and I meditated on it all night. He had a profound vision. The universe doesn't respond to half measures. A partial gift is a sign of partial faith. For the spiritual covenant to be sealed, for the project to be truly protected, it has to be a complete liberation. All of it. All of it. My entire nest egg. Frank's life insurance. The money from selling his construction business. The 401k we'd nurtured for decades. Everything. She said the money needed to be wired to an entity called Mountain Vista Holdings, LLC. It's a legal structure Silas set up to protect the community's assets from being targeted, she explained breezily, as if she were an expert in corporate law. On Thursday, October 19th, I walked into my local branch of Pacific Crest Bank. I sat down with Kevin, a young man with earnest eyes who had helped Frank and me with our retirement planning. He was like a grandson to us. When I told him I needed to liquidate my entire portfolio and wire the full amount to an LLC, his professional smile vanished. "Stay till the end. I'll show the truth." "Tula, are you absolutely sure about this?" he asked, his brow furrowed. "This is everything. It's highly irregular. We're talking about your entire financial security. Are you under pressure? Is someone forcing you to do this?" I should have listened to him. I should have seen the 5-alarm fire blazing in his concerned eyes. But Chloe's voice was louder in my head. Is money more important than me? "I'm fine, Kevin," I lied, my voice sounding thin and strange to my own ears. It's a real estate investment with my daughter, a once-in-a-lifetime opportunity." He looked pained, but he was a banker, not a social worker. He couldn't stop me. "An LLC can be a bit of a black box, Tula. Once the money is sent, especially via wire, it's virtually impossible to get back. Are you signatory on this company? Have you seen the operating agreement?" I just shook my head, feeling a flush of shame. Chloe has handled all the details. I trust my daughter. He sighed and reluctantly printed the paperwork. I looked at the form. Payee, Mountain Vista Holdings, LLC. Amount, $472,841.92. My hand was shaking as I signed my name. I watched Kevin's fingers fly across the keyboard. A printer whirred. He handed me the receipt.
Transaction complete. I felt a bizarre sense of weightlessness walking out of the bank. I thought it was relief. It wasn't. It was the terrifying sensation of having just severed the rope that tethered me to the earth. For the first 10 days, everything was euphoric. Chloe called me every day, bubbling with gratitude. "You did it, Mom. You're a hero. The land is ours. The engineers are coming out next week. Brother Silas is calling you Saint Tula of Maple Creek." She told me to start packing up my sentimental clutter to prepare for my move into my beautiful new suite in the Serenity Wing. So I did. I boxed up Frank's books. I took down photos. I felt like I was dismantling my own life, but I told myself I was preparing for a new one. Then the calls tapered off, from daily to every 3 days, then once a week. Chloe's updates became vague and evasive. When I asked for a copy of the deed for the new land, she said, "Oh, Mom, don't worry about all that legal stuff. It's being handled." When I asked for a move-in date, she said, "The building process is an organic journey. We can't rush it with artificial timelines." A month to the day after I sent the wire, on a cold, rainy November afternoon, I tried calling Chloe. It went directly to voicemail. "Hi, you've reached Chloe. Please leave a message and I'll get back to you with loving intention." Loving intention? I tried again an hour later. Voicemail. A seed of pure, cold dread started to sprout in my gut. I looked at the glossy brochure she'd left behind, the one with the photos of smiling people and soaring cedar beams. I dialed the main number for the retreat listed at the bottom. I listened to it ring once, twice, and then a recorded voice, metallic and devoid of any loving intention, said, "We're sorry. The number you have reached has been disconnected."
The seed of dread exploded into a full-blown panic tree. Thriving businesses don't disconnect their phone lines. I grabbed my car keys, my heart hammering against my ribs, and got into my car. I drove the 2 hours up into the Cascades, the windshield wipers struggling to keep up with the relentless drizzle. My hands gripped the steering wheel so tightly my knuckles were white. As I made the final turn onto the gravel road leading to the lodge, I saw it. It wasn't a welcome sign. It wasn't a gate with smiling community members. It was a heavy, industrial chain, sagging between 2 wooden posts and secured with a rusty padlock. Next to it, hammered into the muddy ground, was a large, weather-beaten "for sale" sign. The sign listed a commercial real estate agent and a phone number, and in smaller letters below that, "price reduced." The lodge wasn't growing. It was a failed asset being liquidated. The place was completely deserted, a ghost town. There was no community of dawning light. There was no Brother Silas. There was no Serenity Wing being built with my husband's legacy. There was just a padlock, a real estate sign, and the sickening, hollow certainty that I had just been played for the biggest fool in the state of Washington. I put the car in park and just sat there, staring through the rain-streaked windshield. My daughter hadn't just been duped. She had to be a part of it. A deep, primal rage began to burn away the shock and the grief. It was a feeling I hadn't felt in years, but I recognized it. It was the feeling of a line being crossed that could never, ever be uncrossed. Someone was going to answer for this. I was getting my money back. I was getting my life back. And heaven help anyone who stood in my way. My first stop wasn't a lawyer or the police. It was my quilting room. I needed to think, and the steady rhythm of the needle, the familiar weight of the fabric, has always been my anchor. As I pieced together scraps of old calico, I pieced together the facts. The money was gone. Chloe was unreachable. The community was a ghost. My only clue was that sterile corporate name on the wire transfer receipt, Mountain Vista Holdings, LLC. So I traded my needle for a keyboard. Sitting at Frank's bold desk, the scent of sawdust still faint in the wood, I typed the name into a search engine. The first result was a business registry. Mountain Vista Holdings was a limited liability company filed in Delaware 6 months prior. Of course, Delaware. It's where you go to make a company anonymous. But you have to list a registered agent. I paid the $20 fee to get the filing documents.
The agent was just a service in Dover. Another dead end. The principal address listed was a P.O. box in Wenatchee, Washington. That was something. It was on the other side of the mountains, but it was in my state. A quick map search showed me it was only 40 minutes from where my estranged sister Barbara lived. A coincidence? Maybe. I didn't believe in coincidences anymore. I felt so foolish, so utterly ashamed. How could I, a grown woman who'd managed our family's budget for nearly 5 decades, fall for something so obvious? But shame wouldn't get my money back. I spent days sifting through every memory, every conversation. What had I missed? That's when I remembered the pamphlet Chloe had left in the guest room during one of her visits. It was a glossy brochure for the Dawning Light retreat. I'd stuffed it in a drawer with some old magazines. I dug it out, my heart pounding. Tucked inside was a little sticky note, folded in half. I opened it. There were 2 lines of handwritten text. The first said, "Lavender and chamomile tea, her favorite." The second said, "Mention Uncle Richard's farm story. It always softens her up." The air left my lungs. My mind reeled. Uncle Richard wasn't Chloe's uncle. He was my brother-in-law, the man my sister Barbara was supposed to marry 40 years ago. And the story? It was a painful one, a family wound I rarely discussed with anyone, especially not Chloe. How would Chloe know to use that against me? It was a coaching note. Someone was telling her how to manipulate me. I stared at the handwriting, a tidy, slightly back-slanting cursive. It looked familiar. Terribly familiar. I went to my old hope chest, the one where I keep cards and letters. I rummaged past baptism announcements and graduation cards until I found it. A birthday card from my sister, Barbara, sent last year. I placed it next to the sticky note. The capital R in Richard, the looping F in farm. They were identical. It was my sister. My own sister had orchestrated this. The story of Richard's farm wasn't a happy one. 40 years back, my Frank and Barbara's fiancé, Richard, were about to go in on a piece of farmland as an investment. It was supposed to set both our families up for the future. 2 days before they were to sign the papers, the bank called Frank. Richard's credit check had come back a disaster. He was deep in gambling debt and had tried to hide it. Frank, being the honest man he was, told me, and together we had to tell Barbara. Richard's whole life was a lie. Barbara was humiliated. She broke off the engagement and was left with nothing.
She never forgave us. In her mind, we hadn't saved her from a con man. We had embarrassed her, ruined her chance at happiness. Our relationship had been a tightrope of strained civility ever since. She was always subtly jealous of my stable marriage, my quiet life. And she must have seen my loneliness after Frank's passing as the perfect opportunity to settle an old score. She had weaponized my daughter's vulnerability and used it to destroy me. Keep watching. There will be justice. This was no longer just about the money. This was about a 40-year-old betrayal that had finally flowered into a monstrous act of cruelty. I couldn't go to the police with just a handwritten note. I needed concrete proof tying Barbara to Mountain Vista Holdings and Brother Silas. I remembered something else. Brother Silas, the folksy, charismatic leader, wore a very specific piece of jewelry, a heavy gold pinky ring with a flat black onyx stone. It was tacky and memorable. On a hunch, I went to Barbara's Facebook page. She didn't post often, but she had an album from a hospital foundation gala she'd attended 7 months ago. I clicked through the photos, and there she was, smiling in a sequined dress, her arm linked with a man in a tuxedo, and on that man's pinky finger was a flash of gold and black. The ring. His face was tagged, Martin Fields. A new Google search. Martin Fields plus cult plus scam. The results hit me like a ton of bricks. Articles from papers in Oregon and Arizona. He was a professional con artist who specialized in new age affinity fraud. He'd charm his way into communities, identify vulnerable people, and bleed them dry before vanishing. He had a dozen aliases. Brother Silas was just his latest role. And my sister, my bitter, vengeful sister, had apparently become his business partner. I now had the connection. Barbara and Martin Fields, aka Brother Silas, Martin Fields and his history of scams, and the LLC based in a town near where Barbara lived. It was all clicking into place. But how to get my money back? An expose would bring justice, but my savings would be long gone, spent or hidden in offshore accounts. I needed to corner her. I decided to set a trap, using the same pawn she had used against me, her niece. I finally managed to get through to Chloe's cell. She sounded nervous, flighty. I didn't yell. I didn't accuse. I played the part Barbara had written for me. I cried. "Chloe, honey, it's all gone," I whimpered, letting my voice crack. The phone is off. The gates are locked. I don't know what happened. I'm ruined. I have to sell the house. I called out Barbara, and she offered to let me stay with her for a while until I get on my feet. This was a lie, of course. I hadn't spoken to Barbara. Chloe was silent for a moment. I could almost hear the gears turning in her head. She was likely told I'd be taken care of, that I'd be given a room at the new center. My destitution was not part of the plan she'd been sold. "Aunt Barbara's?" she asked, her voice small. "Yes, I'm heading there tomorrow morning. It would be nice if you could be there too," I said, letting the sentence hang in the air. She agreed. Hook, line, and sinker. Don't click away. He'll get what's coming. The next morning, I drove to Barbara's house 3 hours away. I got there an hour before Chloe was due to arrive. I'd brought a small gift bag with a jar of my homemade raspberry jam. Tucked inside, underneath the tissue paper, was a tiny digital voice recorder, the kind journalists use. My state has one-party consent laws for recording conversations, and since I was a party to the conversation, it was perfectly legal. I told Barbara I'd come a bit early to drop off the jam, that I was on my way to a lawyer's appointment about selling the house. I asked to use her powder room, and on my way, I discreetly placed the recorder in a large potted fern in her living room, right where we'd all be sitting. I left and came back 40 minutes later, right as Chloe was pulling up. We walked in together. Barbara greeted us, her face a mask of faux sympathy. She sat us down in the living room, offering us tea. My tea, lavender and chamomile. "Tulla, you poor thing," Barbara began, her voice dripping with insincere sorrow. "To be taken in by charlatans like that, it's just awful." I just looked at her. "How did you know about them, Barbara?" She stiffened slightly. "Oh, Chloe told me a little, just that you were investing in her future." I turned to my daughter, whose eyes were darting between the two of us. "Is that what you thought this was, Chloe? An investment, or were you liberating my stagnant energy?" She flinched. The mask began to slip from Barbara's face, replaced with a smug, ugly triumph she could no longer hide. "Well, Tella, for once in your life, you did something useful with all that money Frank squirreled away. Let's call it what it is, a family wealth redistribution."
Chloe looked horrified. "Aunt Barbara, what are you talking about? We were building a community. We were helping people." Barbara let out a short, sharp laugh. "Oh, grow up, Chloe. We were helping ourselves. Your mother and father sat on that high horse for 40 years, looking down on me after they destroyed my life with Richard. They had the perfect marriage, the perfect house, the perfect child. I had to scrape my way back from nothing. It's only fair I get my share of that perfection." She gestured around her lavishly decorated living room. "And Martin and I have put it to very good use." Chloe was pale as a sheet. "Martin? You mean Brother Silas? You knew he was... You planned this?" "Of course I planned it," Barbara snapped, her voice hard as steel. You were the perfect tool, so desperate for a purpose, for a family. It was almost too easy. A few scripted phone calls, a little story about an old farm, and your mother opened the vault. That's when I stood up. I walked over to the potted fern, reached in, and pulled out the small digital recorder. I pressed the stop button. The little red light blinked off. Barbara's face went from smug to sheet white in a split second. "Every word," I said quietly. "Your entire confession about Martin Fields, about targeting your niece, about robbing your own sister as revenge for a gambling addict who lied to you 40 years ago. It's all here." Chloe was openly sobbing now, staring at her aunt with pure betrayal in her eyes. I gave Barbara an ultimatum. I had already consulted a lawyer. A contract had been drafted and was waiting in my car. She had two choices. Option 1, she would call her bank right now and wire the full $472,000 plus an additional $50,000 for damages back into my account. The transfer had to be confirmed within the hour. Option 2, I would walk out this door, drive straight to the district attorney's office, and hand them this recording. Chloe would be given immunity to testify against both her and Martin. Barbara stared at me, her mouth opening and closing like a fish. She chose option 1. It took me another 2 months to put my life completely back together. The money is now in an ironclad trust managed by a professional. I used the information I'd gathered on Martin Fields to make an anonymous tip to a reporter in Arizona who had written about him before. A new expose came out last month, and I hear the authorities are closing in. My relationship with Chloe is a work in progress. She is in deep, intensive therapy, untangling the brainwashing from the cult and the betrayal by her aunt. She is filled with remorse, and for the first time, she's taking true ownership of her life. She comes over every Sunday. We don't talk about the money. We just sit in the garden, and I teach her how to properly prune the hydrangeas. We are rebuilding, branch by branch. To any woman out there, especially those of us who have lost a partner and are finding our way alone, know this: your kindness and your open heart are not weaknesses, but they are treasures that must be protected. You are not foolish for loving your children, and you are not selfish for safeguarding your future. Trust your gut. Build your boundaries like a stone wall, because you have earned your peace. And no one, not a con man, not a stranger, and not even your own family, has the right to take it from you.
My grandmother told me this story. Thanks for watching this video. Bye bye!